Hello and welcome to Africa Prime. I'm Karima. Today my guest is South Africa's Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula, a man who is seen by many as a rising star in the ruling African National Congress and touted in some circles as a person who could well take over from the current ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. He now joins me from our Cape Town studios. Minister, thank you so much for your time. You recently announced the fact that you are going to put in 5.25 million rand into what you called a mass participation sports program in a bid to break down what you called barriers which prevents disadvantaged children from developing into world-class athletes. Tell us how you're going to do this.
We intend doing this by ensuring that, among others, the chunk of this money will be the biggest investment will go to school sport, grassroots development of sport, which this year, for the first time, will unveil the National School Sport Olympics in South Africa, and also to ensure that there is community development and facilities and upgrading already the existing facilities and renovating some where it is necessary. But over and above that, it is about ensuring that we invest in school sport programs, we invest in community sport, we invest in actual facilities in the different communities.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, school sports is a critical pillar of what you're trying to do. But we know that many schools in South Africa, particularly those in township communities, are very poorly resourced. And if the cake has to be cut, people are going to give money to textbooks and not necessarily to school fields. How do you make sure that sport, doesn't come second when it comes to dishing out that developmental cake and the resources that needs to go to school sports?
I think we've made a very important case for sport in South Africa, and everyone, including in government today, recognizes there is a greater need to invest in sports, because that's how you are basically going to increase your impact in terms of social cohesion in society. And in this particular instance, I'm happy to re-emphasize and announce again that at the present moment, we have adopted the National Sports Plan, and government is already in the process of costing that plan for cabinet approval, which means that there's going to be a significant investment into sports through the integrated plan, unlike before, where in which we simply relied on the allocation from Treasury without a specific focus integrated plan of sports. Countries like Australia, they've got a 20-year plan, and they're still finding challenges even in performing in the London Olympics. We, without any other plan, we have been able to basically do even better than we was actually expected. So there is a case for sport, and everybody in the country, including the private sector, need to align their plans in terms of overall investment in sports in South Africa.
Now, you spoke about the private sector, Minister. Obviously, government cannot do this alone, despite the enormous resources that you've put in place. Talk us through some of the public-private partnerships, particularly, where the private sector can come in to help you assist, get disadvantaged kids into sports in a way where they can make a living off it, where they can become professional sportsmen and women.
At the present moment, we have taken the private sector through our sports plan. In South Africa, we've got 27,000 schools. And of these 27,000 schools, we've got about 12,000 already registering in our school sport program. And the next year, the numbers are just going to increase and basically increase, because our strategic objective is to get the school sport program to be played in every school. In that way, we're going to have a targeted approach. In this program in particular, we already have got commitment from a number of private sector corporations through their corporate social investment programs, who have said, I want to invest in primary education in relation to developing kids from primary, in particular picking on football, others netball, and so on. So this is something that has never happened. And I had a big breakfast meeting with the private sector and big corporates, where I took them through our sports plan, because in the past, you had private sector investing in sports, but it was what I call make me look good programs, so that I can give a proper account in my annual report as a company about doing something. In this particular instance, we say, yes, make me look me good, but invest in what constitute the priorities of what we want to achieve. Yes, we want everybody to play at the end of the day, but we want to bring up athletes and ensure that they are properly nurtured.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the proper financial management in the various sporting codes is a critical issue. You have appointed commissions of inquiry, for example, into cricket, the Nicholson Commission of Inquiry, looking into some of the maladministration. Let me quote you what you said in that, when the outcome came out. You said the committee of inquiry chaired by Judge Chris Nicholson found that the provisions of the Companies Act were breached and made far-reaching recommendations. These recommendations have a potential to change the entire sporting landscape in South African sport, and not just for cricket. Minister, talk us through how important it is to actually have proper financial governance, particularly in these big sporting codes where it's big bucks, in the final analysis.
Proper corporate governance is very proper. Cricket SA, among others, have actually experienced this, and they are in the process of processing all those recommendations as per the recommendation of the judge. But the proper corporate governance is important, because if the administrators or the administration of the sport is not proper, we will not be in a position to attract this investment from the corporate sector, because nobody wants to give his money to criminals or corrupt individuals. People want to see results. And in this particular instance, our corporate governance must be up to speed. Today, some of the sporting codes have failed, not because athletes cannot perform, but because where there's been maladministration, some of them have been put under administration, prohibiting the program of athlete Olympic development in South Africa, focusing largely on the question of administration and so on. So it is absolutely important that we must get our things right. And in this particular instance, I'm not intending to be on the sidelines and blame people, because when people get elected into these bodies, some of them don't have corporate governance skills. So it is appropriate at the present moment, among other things that we look at, is to train administrators in the different federations to ensure proper administration.
Now, of course, financial administration is important, but we do sit with legacy questions in South Africa. Every time when we have the announcement of national teams, the issue of transformation, the issue of race representation, of course, comes up. Minister, you've been in this portfolio now for a while. From where you're sitting, how are we doing in terms of truly transforming our representation in terms of our national teams across the board, not just in your big sporting codes like rugby and cricket and so on?
You see, Karima, one of the things that we've done out of the consequentials of the sports plan is to establish a committee of eminent persons, chaired by Dr. Somadoda Fikile, to look at the question of transformation, to actually implement across the board the transformation charter and the scorecard, and to review the effectiveness of the quotas in terms of them being productive in achieving our set goals of transformation. That is going to ensure that all sporting codes across, like you say, adhere and are able to basically implement for our national teams the question of transformation or effecting transformation. But also, what underpins that transformation is development. We need to deliver from the side of government, because there is an uneven development here. You've got schools which are former Model C, where most of our athletes actually come from. And then you've got kids who are playing in the dusty streets and in the public schools. They are not exposed and they are not properly nurtured. All of that is over now. And that is why in our school sport Olympic program, this talent that is going to come through that, will be incubated into high performance so that we don't have a problem of talent. Like for instance, this year in December, after everything else, we've got the schools Olympics. Watch out the space. All the athletes that gonna come through that, some of them will be delivered to SASCOC to basically monitor them and properly align them and train them for high performance in terms of talent in South Africa. On the other hand, government is doing its part in terms of development, which we've got to do. On the other hand, SASCOC has got to nurture them in terms of high performance. The eminent persons group will be able to make an evaluation of all the federations, given its terms of reference, to say, in rugby, we don't see transformation. What is the problem? So it's no longer a question of talking transformation and reduce it to racial polarization, because transformation is about access, is about equity, is about geographical spread and all-round active participation. It's not simply about race, it's about ensuring also that a young person who is an aspirant athlete in Limpopo or the Eastern Cape or far rural Natal or Free State gets the necessary exposure and support and basically be properly trained in order for him or her to come and represent the country in the later stage.
Now, of course, Minister, you are basking like the rest of South Africa in the glory of what we did at the Olympics. We did very well, below par in terms of medals of the, the target that was set, but certainly doing us very, very proud. If you were to identify two things that you think made our team do so well at the Olympics, what would those two things be, Minister?
It is a program. It is a program and a focus program on the athletes, their development and the support. We've got in SASCOC a program called the OPEX. This program focuses on athlete development, traces them, make it a point that they participate in major international competitions. And at the same time, they are well supported and well resourced, a greater sponsorship. And one of the things that we're talking about today is to say, going to Rio 2016, we don't start the preparations a few months before. The preparations start now. South Africa, like all other nations, must be able to align its program to have an Olympic focus program so that government also can invest in that. For the first time this time around, government took out 37 million to an Olympic program, which is something that has never been done before. And with that kind of support, that goes direct to federations like rowing, for instance, like swimming, which is struggling with funding at the present moment. I'm telling you that we will be going to the Olympics, not the 12 medal tally that we seek to achieve. It is achievable. And we need that focus program. And you will see, even going to Rio and in our planning now, we are going to integrate in our plans, including our budgeting from the side of government, to trace and invest in Olympic program for the country.
Well, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, we continue our conversation with South Africa's Sports Minister, Fikile Mbalula.